Go. There you go. Work. Let's go. Eyes up. 1, 2, 3.
Welcome into practice today, presented by SiriusXM. Ethan Greenberg, Eric Allen here in the BetMGM studio. We're going to hear from Olivia Landis and Brian Baldinger later in the show. Fresh off the bye, the Jets are back on the practice field as they're gearing up for their first of 3 West Coast trips and take on the Los Angeles Chargers this Sunday.
Don't let that picture behind us fool you. It is freezing here in Florham Park. It is 35 degrees. We're going to check in with Olivia Landis in a couple minutes. Conversely, on the other side of the spectrum, in LA this weekend is supposed to be in the low 70s as the Jets will play at SoFi Stadium for the first of 2 trips. Like you just mentioned, the Jets have a West Coast feel after the bye. 3 of their next 5 games on the coast.
And then, of course, after they play the Chargers, then there's the Rams game and the Seahawks game, which are back-to-back, and the Jets will be not staying out there like they once maybe were considering. Adam Gase spoke to the media earlier today, and he was saying that the pandemic has affected the Jets, not really a ton in terms of travel, but they'll go a little later on Friday just to make sure they don't stay in the hotel a bunch.
Well, I think earlier on in the year you were talking about maybe going out there on Thursday, but like you talked about dealing with the pandemic right now, NFL teams are going to these hotels and you're sequestered inside the hotel. You're literally not even leaving the premises, so you're going to get out there as late as possible on Friday, take that late trip out after you get your work in, and then on Saturday you'll have a walkthrough in sunny Southern California. Once again, I reiterate, sunny Florham Park today, but freezing Florham Park.
And very windy Florham Park as well. That leads us to today's headline, which is that Sam Darnold will miss his 2nd consecutive game, his 4th of the season, which means that Joe Flacco will in turn start his 4th game of the year. And Flacco and the Jets offense as a whole coming off an impressive game against the New England Patriots in Week 9.
I thought Flacco was very good against the Patriots, completed 18 of 25 passes, had the 3 touchdowns. Brashad Perryman got into the end zone twice, 5 catches, 101 yards. Those 3 receivers were on the field together for the first time. Perryman, Denzel Mims, and Jamison Crowder, they combined for 11 catches in all. It's a tough break for Sam Darnold that he'll be missing his 2nd consecutive game, and now this is 4 out of 6, but you'll like what you saw out of Flacco. We talked to him earlier this week, and he's a confident guy who's seen a lot in the National Football League, and the Jets were able to do a lot of good things offensively. Most notably, they scored on 5 of their first 6 possessions, Greens, and going back now, the Jets have scored on their opening possessions 3 straight games.
Yeah, and when you look at these numbers, or let's put up the graphic if we can for a minute. When you look at these numbers,
there was a side angle
in detail. Yeah, it's flattering. Anyway, here's a look at how good the Jets offense was. When you look at the season averages in terms of yards per game on the left, and on the right, you see what the Jets did with the healthy receiving core with Brashad Perriman, Denzel Mims, and Jamison Crowder. The only number that's not over the benchmark for the year is the rushing yards total, and that's just because Brashad Perriman, Denzel Mims, and Jamison Crowder, they brought it, and Joe Flacco brought it against the Patriots, so all the numbers are significantly increased compared to the season averages.
You mentioned the offensive line before. Adam Gase thought it was one of their better performances, and we talked about the 3 guys at the wide receiver position being together. Well, the offensive line was together as well, and that's the big thing for the Jets moving forward, is not only do you want continuity at the receiver position, you want continuity up front along the offensive line as they continue to take strides forward. When you're looking at the LA Chargers, this is a team that has struggled to keep the points down on the scoreboard. I believe 6 consecutive games now where Chargers opponents have scored more than 29 points. So I believe the Jets are going to have some more opportunities to get on the board early and often against a Chargers team that has some talent, but they've struggled as well. Greens, 2-7 so far this season. It seems like every game the Chargers are in, it's nip and tuck at the end. 1 possession ball game.
Yeah, well, there were 2 weeks in a row where the Chargers lost games that came down to the very end. And when you talk about two quarterbacks that are on opposite ends of the spectrum, you think about that guy right there, 35-year-old Joe Flacco, and rookie quarterback Justin Herbert for the LA Chargers, who will be making his 9th career start of his young career Sunday. And for a deeper look at Herbert and that Chargers offense, let's hear from Brian Baldinger for another Baldy's Breakdown presented by Sharp.
Hey, thanks a lot, Ethan. And today, I want to take you into the film room to look at one of the most dynamic young quarterbacks in the league, rookie Justin Herbert of the Chargers. Justin Herbert now has 8 starts under his belt, and you have to account for him as a runner, whether it's a scrambler, whether it's a designed run, or whether it's the part of a read option. He scored 3 rushing touchdowns. He's excellent with the ball in his hands. Now, he's got some legitimate big-time weapons. All right, Keenan Allen comes in motion. That's his number 1 target. All right, and if you try to blitz him, he's going to go find Keenan Allen, because Keenan Allen's going to find the open spot. Here against an 8-man pressure, he reads Keenan Allen's break on the ball, and he gets it to him, and he beats Xavier Howard for a touchdown. All right, he's not afraid to throw jump balls. Down at the bottom, Michael Williams, he's excellent at being able to time the jump and just put it up there and let Michael Williams go get it. He's excellent at doing that. All right, and then he's got a big-time tight end in Hunter Henry. They have Durham Parham, who's a 6'8" tight end, but Hunter Henry, 86, is the guy that they feature. And they try to throw these sail routes and these over routes to. And Justin Herbert play a bunch of tall ball. At 6'6", he finds his 6'5" tight end. Look, Justin Herbert has thrown 19 touchdowns in 8 starts. They've been in every game, and they were in this game to the end against the Dolphins. Justin Herbert is playing very well.
The Jets are going to have their hands full with Keenan Allen on one side, who's 4th in the NFL with 65 receptions to go along with his 690 yards and 5 touchdowns. And, of course, Mike Williams, the number 7 overall selection in 2017, a big-bodied guy. And the secondary that's going up against these receivers looks a little bit different now as the green and white let go of Pierre Desir yesterday. For more on that, let's head to our sideline report with Olivia Landis. Liv, what can you tell us about the letting go of Pierre Desir?
Like you mentioned, Ethan, yesterday it was announced that the Jets had released cornerback Pierre Desir, who was in his 7th season in the NFL and just his 1st season with the New York Jets. He was signed back in April of this year, and prior to being released, through the first 9 games that he was able to play with the Jets, he recorded 47 tackles, 8 pass defenses, and 3 interceptions. So today, head coach Adam Gase was able to speak to the media prior to them heading on the practice field, and he was asked why they released the veteran cornerback. And head coach Adam Gase said at the end of the day, it came down to wanting to get some of these younger defensive players on the field, wanting to get them some more playing time and some more experience. And he said, to add on to that, we didn't want to have this veteran player who was just participating on special teams or to have him inactive. They wanted to give him the opportunity to be able to play elsewhere. So he was released yesterday. Speaking of some of those younger players that head coach Adam Gase was talking about, I was able to speak to Bryce Hall last week following the Monday night game versus the Patriots. Obviously, he is a key young player who was coming off of an injury. He was not able to play since October of 2019, and then he made his NFL debut against the Patriots. He's a cornerback that you could probably expect to see having a lot of playing time in the next 7 games. We've talked about safety Ashton Davis, who has shown a lot of flashes. A lot of his coaches have talked very highly about his efforts, his teammates. Marcus May has talked about him before. He actually played in all 81 defensive snaps versus the Patriots on that Monday night primetime game. And then, of course, you have cornerback Bless Austin, who's just in his 2nd season. So a lot of young players there on the defensive side of the ball, a lot of players that are coming off of injuries, and you can expect to see some of those younger players getting a lot of that playing time over the next 7 games.
One of those players that Liv just mentioned, thank you for the update, is Bryce Hall, the rookie out of Virginia who made his NFL debut against the Patriots. And there are a couple new faces, a lot of young faces in that cornerbacks room. If you look at number 27, that I believe is Corey Ballentine, who the Jets claimed last week from the New York Giants, a 2nd-year player, former 6th-round pick. And that room, that cornerbacks room in particular, not the safeties, has 3 rookies, 2 of whom are undrafted.
You got to get your flip card out to know who is playing cornerback for the New York Jets. You have 3 rookies on the active roster. The aforementioned Bryce Hall, who got his first 39 snaps in the National Football League against the New England Patriots. Lamar Jackson, of course, undrafted free agent out of Nebraska. Javelin Guidry, likewise another undrafted free agent. Bless Austin, he feels like he's the graybeard in the bunch all of a sudden. He's played 75% of the snaps for the Jets so far this season. You mentioned Ballantyne. I'm wondering if the Jets open up when they're in nickel formation against the Chargers with Bless Austin on the outside, Bryce Hall on the outside, and Arthur Millette, the fourth-year cornerback, who's the oldest in this bunch at the nickel position.
Arthur Millette, to your point, could be starting for Brian Poole, who was placed on injured reserve earlier this week. And Millette started 6 games for the Jets last year. He had a special teams touchdown, and he's really the graybeard of the bunch in terms of NFL experience, but Bless Austin, the graybeard in terms of Jets experience.
Yep.
And so with that being said, let's take a look at the injury report presented by Atlantic Health. We knew Sam Darnold would not practice, will not play Sunday. Defensive lineman Henry Anderson won't practice, but Adam Gase said that the team expects him to hopefully participate, at least in a limited capacity, tomorrow and the rest of the week. A couple names here to keep an eye on. Brashad Perriman hurt his shoulder against the Patriots. Adam Gase said nothing too much to worry about there, but we'll monitor the situation. One name that's not on this list, which is important, Mekhi Becton. We saw him leave the Patriots game early with a chest injury. Seems that he'll be a full participant today. Sam Ficken has missed the past couple games. But let's focus on the defensive line because Quinnen Williams is a limited participant as well. And that group is going to have an important role to play Sunday against a rookie quarterback who's mobile. Maybe not take off and run mobile, but he's mobile in the pocket and he'll buy extra time.
Yeah, he will. He's a big guy. It's interesting when you look at this matchup. Both Herbert and Joe Flacco are 6'6", but he is an athletic guy who can make some plays. We remember that Monday night game early in the season when they were playing the Saints when Cameron Jordan and company were on Herbert and he escaped to his right and threw a dart to Keenan Allen, of course. So this is an athletic passer, 19 touchdown passes, 6 interceptions, as Baldy talked about. So he's not making killer mistakes. But I like where the Jets are at from a defensive tackle perspective because Lorenzo Fatukasi was terrific against the New England Patriots. John Franklin Myers has been flashing. And you mentioned Quinnen Williams. Adam Gase, very optimistic that Williams will be back in the lineup after a 1-game absence. Greens, 31 tackles so far this season, and he also is pressing the pocket. Young quarterbacks are not going to like that if Quinnen Williams is in the lineup because he's a guy who can get up the field. He has 3 sacks on the year, and I know it sounds funny to be talking about Pro Bowl consideration for a 0-9 team, but Quinnen Williams has been one of the better defensive tackles in the National Football League this year. It goes under the radar.
Let's go to the offensive side of the ball because we mentioned this earlier. The Jets' 3 receivers, the 3 dudes, as Adam Gase called them, Brashad Perriman, Denzel Mims, and Jamison Crowder, all took the field for the first time against the Patriots, and it was a totally different offense with Brashad Perriman stretching the field vertically, Denzel Mims as well. You look at their numbers right there. What's next for this group in particular?
Well, hopefully a lot of yards and hopefully touchdowns. I mean, and not only did they have the receptions, but they got in the end zone with the 3 combined touchdowns. Mims is only going to get better and better. He's practiced less than 15 times in the National Football League, so he is learning on the go. He is such a ceiling in terms of what he can do after the catch. Perryman is a guy who took off last year in Tampa. He's dealing with the shoulder ailment that he suffered against the Patriots, but out there on the practice field today. So you're thinking this is a minor bit that he'll be able to be back on the field. And I think Crowder will benefit of having that extra week coming off the bye. We'll have to see what the Chargers do. They'll probably play a little bit more zone, but Adam Gase has talked about the more you make plays down the field, and Joe Flacco also said this as well, the more you're going to get teams out of man, and then you're going to see some more zone and maybe some more easy completions.
You know, I'm glad you mentioned that because I was wondering how you think defenses would react after a game in which the Jets had Monday night, or I guess a week ago from Monday night at this point, when you saw Brashad Perriman stretch the field and Denzel Mims have success. And the Chargers defense, they rank 16th against the pass. They allow an average of 232 yards per game. And that defense is 22nd in scoring. They allow an average of 27.2 points per game.
Yeah, people have been putting up points against the Chargers on a weekly basis. So the Jets aren't going to have to deal with any weather when they go out there to SoFi Stadium. And Joe Flacco looked awfully comfortable in the pocket. He was making his third start for the Jets. So, and the pieces around him are guys who can do some things, and this is what the Jets have been waiting for. But it's too bad, but you can't live in the past. Right now, you're 0-9. You're just looking to make some inroads here after the bye. And I'm excited, for one, to see Perriman, Mims, and Crowder go at it. And then offensive backfield, too. You're hoping, you talked about the rushing yard totals against the Patriots. You're hoping that you have to do some more things out of the backfield with the run game, especially this week against the Chargers, because the Jets have a lot of respect for that front four. We'll have to see if Joey Bosa is back in the lineup for them.
Joey Bosa is currently in concussion protocol. Now, Adam Gase said that obviously he'd make a big difference for that Chargers front. That also features Melvin Ingram and Jerry Tillery. Now it's time for Keys to the Game with Eric Coleman, presented by SiriusXM. EC wears many hats. He's a host on SiriusXM NFL Radio, as well as a Jets 360 contributor.
Hi, I'm Eric Coleman with SiriusXM NFL Radio with this week's Keys to Victory for the New York Jets as they play the Los Angeles Chargers. Now, offensively, it's going to be important that the offensive line sets the tone. The Chargers' defensive line just got bolstered up with Joey Bosa coming back into the fold. It's also going to be important offensively to continue with the deep shots. Before the bye, the Jets had a lot of success with Brashad Perriman down the field, and the Chargers' secondary is one of the worst at defending the deep ball. Now, on the defensive side of the ball, it's going to be important for the secondary to continue to disguise coverage, mix up some looks for this young quarterback in Justin Herbert. You can trick him into some interceptions, into some mistakes, and that's going to be a big key for the defense. I'm Eric Coleman, and those are my keys to victory.
It's time for our Stats Amazing segment. This one comes courtesy of Randy Langwin. The New York Titans concluded their AFL inaugural season in 1960 with a 50-43 loss to the LA Chargers. Jack Kemp was the quarterback, and Kemp started 28 of their first 30 games for the Chargers and eventually became a representative for New York State in the U.S. House. Now let's head to our NFL Network's analytics expert, Cynthia Freeland, for more of a look at Monday's matchup.
Jets fans, I'm Cynthia Freeland, and here are 3 stats you need to know in preparation for Week 11's matchup with the Los Angeles Chargers out in California. The first number is 101.9, as in the Chargers defense allows an almost 102 passer rating on 2nd and 3rd down with 10 or more yards to go. What does this mean? That there's a great opportunity to keep the chains moving even if first down isn't a success. Brashad Perriman, who hauled in 5 catches for 101 yards and a touchdown, Denzel Mims, who caught 4 for 62, and Jamison Crowder, who also saw the end zone all in Week 9, make for great targets for Joe Flacco and your fantasy team. The second number that stands out is 20%, as in Quinnen Williams is super efficient when he's going to sack a quarterback. 3 sacks on 15 pressures, that makes a 20% sack rate. That ranks in the top 5 in the NFL in terms of pass rushing efficiency. He also has 19 run stops. That's tied for 4th most in the NFL. This one could be even kind of more important because where he stands on the field, he needs to gobble up opposing running backs. The last thing that really sticks out to me is kind of an overall assessment of this Chargers defense. They've only intercepted the ball 4 times. They only have 8 total takeaways. Both are tied for 3rd fewest in the NFL. They've also allowed 18 passing touchdowns, which is the 5th most in the NFL. So again, that really reinforces my receiver note from above, but ultimately shows that there's opportunities with this situation this week to get the win. For more stats and context just like that, join me and Dan Grassa this weekend on The Numbers Game. Back to you, Ethan and EA.
Thanks, Cynthia. The number that really stands out to me is the lack of takeaways from the LA Chargers, and that Jets defense, they're getting a boost in the middle. Just a couple hours ago, probably less than that at this point, the Jets activated Patrick Owasso, who's set to make his Jets debut at that middle linebacker spot. he's somebody, started 32 games in his career. That's the same amount of games that Neville Hewitt has started in his career. So he clearly has a lot of experience, not only on defense, but special teams as well.
As far as former undrafted free agents, Neville Hewitt in the National Football League ranked second in tackles. And Harvey Longy was all over the place against the New England Patriots. He did a fine job starting so Owasu can come in and provide some depth at the inside linebacker position and perhaps help you immediately on special teams. So that is a good development here for the Jets. And speaking of numbers, as we watch the defense here early in practice, here are the point totals of the Chargers' last 6 opponents. Miami Dolphins, 29 points. The Raiders, 31 points. The Broncos, 31 points. The Jaguars, 29 points. The Saints, 30 points. And the Buccaneers, 38 points, Greens.
So basically what EA is saying is that the Jets will have their opportunity to put points on the board. Another linebacker move, Frankie Louvu, who was placed on IR, is designated to return. So he's in that 3-week window. So he might get activated for Sunday, but he could also just sit in that 3-week window for a full 3 weeks. It could be 1 week, 2 weeks. We don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah, and the Chargers offense, when we're looking at the matchup, and you're talking about the inside linebacker position specifically, they've struggled to run it. Now, their number one back last week in Miami was former Jets running back Kalen Ballage. We'll have to find out about the status of Austin Eckler. So without Eckler in the lineup, he's kind of the guy who gets everything moving for them. They've had to depend a lot upon the rookie quarterback who hasn't been making the killer mistake. But the Jets up front, let's see how much damage they can do and put Herbert in uncomfortable positions, especially in 3rd and long. And you can do that if you take away the run. Anthony Lynn, he used to be here with the Jets, of course, a former Jets running backs coach. He's been operating with a lot of multiple back formations, and also he uses the tight ends quite a bit.
Austin Eckler, a very important piece to that LA Chargers offense. We'll see if he'll be back in the lineup coming off a hamstring injury. Now let's wrap up this show with the roundtable. So let's bring back Olivia Landis, who's bracing the cold. We very much appreciate that. So Liv, let's start with you, and then we'll hear from EA, and I'll wrap it up. Which Jets player is set to flash over the final 7 games of 2020?
This is a tough one. I thought about it a lot, and I'm going to go on the defensive side of the ball. For me, it was between 2 rookies, but I'm going to go with my gut here, and I'm going to say safety, Ashton Davis. I think he's had to step up in pretty crucial times. There have been injuries at that position. I think he's done really well so far. He's had his ups and downs, but I expect him to flash through the next 7 games of this season.
EA, what about you?
On the offensive side, we're going to continue to watch Denzel Mims emerge. I think we've seen that early on in his NFL career. I think he's going to continue to take off here down the stretch. On the defensive side of the ball, I'm really interested to watch what Bryce Hall has in store for us, especially after the Jets releasing Pierre Desir. I think he'll have an opportunity perhaps to start this week, and he is a guy who found the football collegiately at the University of Virginia. So I'll stay with Hall on the defensive side.
I'm going back to the defensive side of the ball. Someone that we rarely talk about, especially in terms of the rookie class, is Jabari Zuniga. And the reason why I want to bring him up is when Joe Douglas spoke to the media a couple weeks ago, he was talking about Denzel Mims and how essentially Denzel Mims' practice time equated to a week or 2 of training camp at the time in which Joe Douglas spoke. And I was thinking about it, that's kind of like Jabari Zuniga, because he's somebody that didn't practice in training camp. He was placed on injured reserve. He comes off, and then now he's basically had about 20 practices or so at this point. So for me, I'm saying Jabari Zuniga has a chance to make a difference now that he's got some practice time under his belt and a little bit of playing time as well. And so, Liv, thank you for breaking the cold out there. We really appreciate it. It looks very windy.
Get yourself some gloves.
Get yourself some gloves. You got the fur rocking.
I will not make that mistake again. My poor producer, Ubbs, had to give me his gloves for this one, so big shout out to him. I will not make that mistake twice.
Well, we are in November, so Liv, thank you very much. And that's all we have
Thanks,
here
guys.
on Practice Today, presented by SiriusXM. The Jets travel west for their first of 3 West Coast games to take on the Los Angeles Chargers. We'll see you Sunday.